Welcome to Straight from the Horse's Mouth radio show. I'm Paula Slater, your host. This is an interview-based show where I interview unique and unusual and creative people in the horse world. Well, today I'd like to welcome Anne Gage from ConfidentHorsemanship.com, and Anne lives in Orangeville and works with people who've lost their confidence in riding. Hello, Anne.
Hi, Paula. Thanks for doing this today.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your background. How did you get into all of this?
Well, I started out riding formally as an adult. I rode informally as a kid. I never had my own horse until I was in my early 20s. I went into a hunter jumper barn, so I did hunter, showed on the Trillium circuit for a few years, and then I eventually got my own farm and was coaching and training and doing all the usual stuff. And one day I got bucked off one of my own horses, and he was a horse I'd bred. He'd been really easy to ride. Found out afterwards that he had a physical issue that caused the bucking. But for some reason, and I don't know why it was this particular event, it completely shattered my confidence to the point where I would get almost nauseous putting my foot in the stirrup of any horse. And if I wanted to keep what I was doing, I was going to have to find a way through this. So I did a lot of work. It took some time. And a lot of it was focusing on my mental game, improving my trust in myself, regaining trust in my skills and the horses I was getting on. And as I was doing this and I was talking to people about it, I discovered there was a whole lot of people out there going through the same thing, but nobody was really talking about it. Mm-hmm. So that's at the same time I was going through a certification program with Chris Irwin Horsemanship, and that brought together the work with the horse and reframing horses who were struggling with different training problems and their confidence and trust in people. And I was able to connect the two. And I was going through a certification program with Chris Irwin Horsemanship, and he was showing us how to reframe horses or improve horses' performance and trust and respect and confidence by changing their physical frame and how physical frame affects mental state and how that is all connected.
Okay, now can you just explain a little bit about physical frame? You know, you can use that term, but maybe you need to be a little bit more visual, paint a picture of what you're trying to do.
Okay, so with the physical frame, it's about posture, really.
Okay.
So, everyone's familiar with a horse who's on alert, who's going into flight mode with the head up high and the ears pricked and looking intently in a direction of a sound or a movement. And that posture creates certain physical effects. It gets adrenaline running, the horse is in flight mode. And we can change that. If we can change the horse's posture, we can turn off the flight mode and put them into a calm frame of mind. So frame of body, their posture, affects their frame of mind. And it's exactly the same with people. So there was a real connection between what we were doing with the horses, what I was going through, what I was seeing other people going through, and it was really that mind-body connection, and how we can change our thinking to change what's happening to us physically, and how we change our posture can have an influence on how our mind is working. Mm-hmm. So that's what I started to put together in a workshop. It started out initially as a one-day workshop, working with women and introducing them to the concepts of what's going on in your mind and what things you can do to manage that and then also helping them understand what was going on with the horses and how they could change their interaction with the horse could change what was going on for both of them.
Mm-hmm. So you would be getting them to think or visualize, I assume, too.
There's things like, paying attention to your breathing, paying attention to what's going on in your body. Where are you feeling the tension? Where are you holding the tension? And doing some things to release that. What's going on with your heart rate? The breathing slows that down. And the sooner you catch these things and start to change them, the less chance of you going into a full-blown panic. And being aware of what's actually going on in the moment. It's really about being in the moment and not future thinking or past thinking.
Mm-hmm. And I know that some people use, let's say that the person is already riding, they're out on the trail, and for whatever reason, a little bit of panic or fear sets in. And some people that work with horses and people that are afraid say, to sing something, think about something happy,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of hum that or sing it. Unreasonable fear is what I'm speaking of. Let's say that you're just on a trail ride or you're going on just a hack, and all of a sudden you start thinking about what if.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So in order to rein yourself back, sing.
Yeah, and that's one method. There's, different things work for different people, so
Right.
It's good to have a toolbox, right?
Yes.
And so what I come back to, the basic is bring yourself back into the present and check in with what's really going on. If you are paying attention to your horse, is your horse worried about that sound that you think he might be worried about, or that movement you think he might be worried about? And if he's calm, then, you can relax, you can breathe, you can do some tension releasing, and you can, humming, singing, that keeps you breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And breathing is really critical because, if we're holding our breath or we're doing shallow breathing, that's right into our fight-flight mode.
Right.
And then you're reactive, not responsive.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're reactive, you're more likely to actually trigger your horse to do something than if you're staying in awareness of what is actually happening, and then you can be proactive and responsive.
Mm-hmm. Now, who are you finding, who are your clients these days?
Most of my clients are middle-aged women that have had some sort of trauma that's affected their confidence, and that might be they've fallen off and either suffered an injury or not suffered an injury. It was just the fall was enough, like it was with me, to affect their confidence. And it is a mix of some women that have come back. I've got actually a client who I rode with her. I was in my late 20s. She was a teenager at the time, many years ago. And, she's now a woman in her 30s. She has a young daughter. She got a horse, and all of a sudden she went, I can't ride the way I used to ride. I've got this fear. And so that's the type of client that I have. It's a real mishmash, but it all comes down to the things have changed in their life, whether that's a relationship change, financial change, or an actual trauma they suffered with a horse.
And this comes out.
Yeah, and this anxiety that they haven't had before,
Mm-hmm.
they're now dealing with.
Mm-hmm. And now, how long would it take for someone to work on this? I know it depends on the individual, but I would say generally.
That's a tough question to answer, actually. It really does depend on the individual. It depends on some people have more anxiety generally in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
They're just more anxious about everything. And then there's other people where we're just really working on this one specific thing that, like if it's a fall or something that was going on with their horse, a behavior that's going on with their horse, and if we can address that, then they're good to go. So I've got clients I've worked with for a couple of years, and I've had some where I've done a few sessions with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, someone asking when they start riding, how long will it be before I start to canter?
True.
It all depends on so many variables.
Right. Yes.
Because on top of the person, you have the horse. And, so what goes on with the horse too is a variable.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you let's say that you have a client that comes, how would you start out? Do you start out with groundwork first?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I start out meeting the horse, or the person and their horse if they're coming with their own horse, and just see where the relationship between them is. Mm-hmm. And because, again, you can't fix one without addressing the other, or not fixing, but you can't address one without addressing the other. So we start there, and yes, we start from the ground because the whole relationship and how the horse feels about things starts from the ground. Mm-hmm. If a horse doesn't move out of your space when you're on the ground, why should he move away from your leg pressure when you're sitting on his back? If he's dragging you around when you're leading him with the halter, why is he going to listen anymore to the pressure of the reins when you're sitting on his back? So, yeah, it all starts there.
Mm-hmm. And I've been speaking to a lot of people that are working in therapy with horses, mm-hmm. and they talk a lot about the personal space or the space bubble and how mm-hmm. large it is with the horse compared to the human, and approach. Maybe you could talk a little bit about approaching a horse, your horse. So when you approach a horse, part of it depends on how well you know the horse and your relationship with the horse. So horses don't respond well to movements that look like how a predator moves. And mm-hmm. predators tend to move in straight, direct lines. And that's how human beings tend to move. We see the horse and we walk directly to the horse. So right away, that triggers in the horse potential predator, and they're on alert, feeling uncomfortable. When you watch horses move, they kind of arc around. If you see the lines, the paths that horses have made in their paddocks, they're usually got a little bit of an arc to them, a little curving here and there. So you don't approach directly to a horse's head. You approach to the shoulder, but the key thing is, where's your core or your belly button aimed? The horse's comfort zone, or their personal space, goes from the point of the shoulder out about 45-degree angle, just in front of the nose, and then back to the other opposite shoulder at about a 45-degree angle. So a bit like a goalie crease. Mm-hmm. And they don't like pressure going into that space. If you watch how horses go to each other, they go in the heads low when they first meet. The horses who don't know each other meet, heads low, and they do the breath exchange. When horses who know each other go in to groom each other, to do that mutual grooming on the wither, they arc around the head and neck, they bend away from each other. So they're very respectful of that space around the head and neck. And so when you're approaching a horse, being aware of that bubble of the horse and going into the shoulder, the wither area, rather than directly to the head. We tend to like we do with our dogs and our cats and kids, is grab the face and, scratch away on the face. And if you don't know a horse very well, you haven't established a relationship with the horse's head shy, that's going to trigger uncertainty at the very least, and even flight. So approaching the horse, always go around that
no-go zone, that head and neck, and into the shoulder.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, that I've been hearing from the people that are working in therapy is a lot of waiting to, when you're in the zone of the horse or the bubble of the horse, making slow movements and then just sort of waiting till the two of you are sort of connected, maybe in breath or in a rhythm of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot slower than, the past.
That's for sure. The problem I find with that when people hear that type of thing is they start to creep.
And
they go too slow. Yeah.
Threatening.
And again, that's like a predator. If you picture a cat stalking a bird or a mouse, they're down and they creep along, right? And even a dog, anything that hunts like that. So you want it to have flow. You watch how the horses move around each other. They have flow. They're not in a rush, but they're not like stalking. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yes.
So it can be natural. What you don't want to have are, your hands flapping around a lot. Quick movements are also unsettling for a horse because, again, that's what predators, they stalk and then they rush. So you just want it to flow. It's when I talk about groundwork and riding a horse, it's a lot like dancing and like a ballroom dance, and it's all very fluid and it flows and there's rhythm and it's smooth, and that's sort of what we want to introduce or get comfortable doing around the horses.
Mm-hmm. And that takes practice.
Absolutely.
Interacting with many different horses is probably a good idea as well in part of the course, I guess.
Yes, and it takes awareness for our own bodies. With particularly adults, we spend so much time working from the neck up that we forget about the other part of our bodies. So things like, actually in riding lessons, this happens a lot. Well, I'll ask the rider to move your right hip forward a little bit, and what moves is the right shoulder. And it's like we've forgotten that the hips down there move. And so we got to get some more fluidity and movement into all parts of the body, which is why I recommend yoga a lot.
Mm-hmm. I was going to just ask you about that, how much that's connected with your course. Yes. And if you sent your clients home with exercises to do to help supple up.
Yeah, I do. I'm not a physiotherapist or a yoga instructor. I've taken yoga myself, so there are bits and pieces I can suggest and recommend that helps with loosening up, and just body awareness. Mm-hmm. So, but I do, I encourage all my adult students to take yoga or Pilates or Tai Chi or something like that, whatever their bodies can manage, because some of my clients, being older, come with physical challenges, ankles that don't bend as well, hips that might be a little arthritic, which again is a bit challenging when you're riding. So anything you can do to keep your body supple, keep your muscles long, and be very aware of your body is great.
Do you have any kind of any recommendations for the horse owner who's at home mm-hmm. and wanting to reestablish a good relationship with their horse after being off maybe from riding and having some of this, not maybe a panic response, but just sort of uneasiness with their horse? Are there things that they can do on the ground with their horse to help them get back?
Yeah, the everything starts from the ground. That, as I said earlier, the relationship starts from the ground. So everyday chores or time you're spending with your horse, so everything from leading them in and out of the barn to the paddock, feeding time, that's good opportunity for freshening up your relationships. So setting your own boundaries and making sure that your horse isn't invading your space, that you're not moving out of your horse's way, the horse is moving out of your way, that when you're leading them, they're not dragging you around. When you're grooming them, that they're not stepping in and pushing you into the wall. Just little things like that people aren't aware of make a big difference to how the horse feels about the person, because it's very stressful being a horse. They're basically a deer, very large deer. And if you think of the deer out there in the forest, just always on alert for the coyote or the wolf or the hunter, that's what a horse is like. So when you can be the person moving the horse, in the horse world, in the herd, who moves who determines your place in the herd. So the top horse can move everybody. So if you can go in with your horse and that horse yields space to you, if that horse moves a step out of your way rather than pushing into you, that means they're seeing you as one horse above them, and that's all you have to be, is one horse above your horse. And that takes the pressure off your horse, because the most stressful place to be in the herd is the top horse, because they're responsible for everybody. So if you can start being the one who's responsible for keeping the horse safe and secure, and the horse feels that way, that takes some stress off, and they look at you differently. They want to hang around with you. Things for riding, preparing for getting back into the saddle that you want to establish from the ground are, does your horse move his ribs or his barrel over when you put pressure where your leg would be when you're riding? Because that's really how you establish a bend from the saddle, is from your lower leg. So if you put your hand where your leg would be and your horse pushes back into you, that's something you need to work on before you start riding. Can you lead your horse in contact even off the halter? Can you lunge your horse or long line your horse in contact? So that's helping you both with your feel for contact and the horse accepting the contact for when you're in the saddle. So there's all kinds of different things. You can play games with obstacles. You can simulate whatever you would do in the saddle from the ground.
Yes. Now, have you written any books or have
I
any?
have.
Okay, great. Because I was going to say, it's great to be able to explain what to do, but it would be nice for someone who maybe can't get to an instructor, or like yourself, to help them work, to either read a book or see a video that will help them go out and work a little bit with their horse on the ground.
Yeah, so I wrote a book almost 2 years ago since it was published. It's called Confident Rider, Confident Horse. It's available on Amazon, and it's a paperback book. It's in 3 sections. So the first section is about the mental part of confidence. The middle part is about groundwork, and there's lots of photographs and information on how to work with your horse from the ground to establish a good relationship. And then the third part is about being in the saddle. And everything from the ground translates to the saddle. So, and again, there's lots of photographs. I had good feedback on the book so far. I also have some videos on YouTube that illustrate some of the things I've talked about, like walking your horse in contact, where the no-go zone is around the head and the neck, lunging 101, talking about alignment and contact and how to lunge, not to get the bucks out of your horse, but to establish a good work ethic, a good frame, all of those things. Mm-hmm. So, and then I do also have this focuses on the mental aspect of it, but I have an online course that it's sort of do at your own pace, 5 modules of working on the mental game. It's called Winning the Mental Game, actually.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. So this was, I did it as a webinar last year, and these 5 modules cover different aspects of the mental part of anxiety, any type of anxiety, from, show nerves up to panic. And so we talk about what exactly is going on, because a lot of people are saying, I shouldn't be afraid. I should just be getting over this. And what I tell you in this course is, no, you shouldn't. Because once something is in your brain, something has traumatized you, it's there. And honestly, I actually was just working with this myself this week, because I came off a horse last week, and that triggered a little bit of anxiety the next time I went to get on a horse, and I had to go through some of these steps myself. And it was about controlling my thoughts, breathing, being aware of my body, visualizing how I wanted the ride to go, not what I was worried about might happen. So we go through some what I wanted to offer in the course was different techniques to help people, first of all, know they're not alone. There's reasons for why it's happening, and there are things you can do to manage your fear.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Anne, this is such an important message to get out there, because, as you say, people didn't talk about it, or if they did, they were told, oh, well, you'll get over it, or
just get over it.
Get over it, yeah. And it's sort of the old way. It's actually sort of parallels the old way of training horses, as opposed to sort of a more, natural horsemanship, or a greater desire of humans to understand the mind of the horse and work together as partners.
Exactly.
And now I think we need to be, that's great that we're moving in this direction with horses, but now it's time to be a little bit kind to humans, and those humans who do want to be with a horse and feel an affinity, but because of this fear, which is, an emotion that really needs to be dealt with in our society. As you mentioned, it affects every facet of your life. Mm-hmm. I think this is great that you're working on this and offering things, and especially the online course for those people who can't reach you.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I created that, because I know there's so many people out there who need this, who are sort of suffering in silence, because there's still that, never show your horse fear mentality around. And really what you have to do is and this again is in some of the therapy with horses courses you were talking about, is you got to be congruent with how you're actually feeling and what your emotions are. Mm-hmm. Because I used to get angry because you weren't supposed to be fearful. But angry was acceptable. So you get angry and you get tough instead of showing, oh my God, I'm actually really afraid. But because the horse knows something's not right. They know when you're lying, basically, because they're so tuned in, so finely tuned in to reading body language and our energy that we put out. And we pick up on this too. If we walk into a room full of people, we can look. We know there's somebody we want to stay away from, and there's somebody that we're drawn to. And that's all on subtleties of body language and energy. And the horses are masters at it. So when we admit, I'm afraid, and now I can step forward and make a plan for getting through it, mm-hmm. and managing it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it affect people, not just with the horses, but in their lives. I have a client who is a mother of a young child. Her husband has a career, high-end career, and she was she'd ridden during, from a youngster up, lost her confidence, but she was sort of didn't know where she was going with her life either, because her daughter's now in school and her husband's busy with his career. And it's like she just lost confidence in herself, not just confidence with riding. And as we worked through the issues with her and the horse, things started to change in her life in a positive direction too. So, it improved her family life. It was quite amazing. It amazes me every time I see it still.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's very common.
Mm-hmm.
Very common. And that's why I'm so happy that you're doing this work and that you've done, written a book and you're doing online courses and videos, all the different modalities of learning. That's wonderful, that are out there to help people. So can I ask you to share with us your URL and your contact information?
Sure. My website is www.confidenthorsemanship.com. And my email is Anne, with an E, ANNE, at confidenthorsemanship.com. And you can also find me on Facebook if you search Confident Horsemanship.
Okay. And on Straight from the Horse's Mouth radioshow.com, I will have the links for your book, your YouTube videos, and the online Confident Horsemanship course that you're offering as well.
Great.
Okay. Well, I hope to have you back on, Anne, and I'd like to talk more about this because I believe that there are a lot of people that would benefit from your knowledge and your advice. So I hope to speak with you again, and thank you for today.
And thank you, Paula. Okay. I've really enjoyed it.
All right, then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed my interview today with Anne Gage from Confident Horsemanship. For more information about Anne, please go to straightfromthehorsesmouth.radioshow.com, the website. And I'm going to be offering a special draw with prizes and products within the next few weeks. So stay tuned to this channel for more information. It's Paula Slater, signing off for Straight from the Horse's Mouth radio show. Bye. See you next week.